Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 28th of February of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the Middle East, where the United States of America and Israel began their military operation against Iran. So we have lots of, as you can see, icons from this area, because during the previous 24 hours there were hundreds or maybe even thousands of missiles used altogether by the United States of America and by Israel and by Iran. Lots of explosions, so let's discuss everything in details. Once again, according to the Department of War, this operation was called as Operation Epic Fury. According to the United States of America, the Israelis are calling this operation the Work of Lion. So what we have by the end of the 28th of February. This morning, the Israelis began bombing and attacking the capital of Iran, the city of Tehran. And during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos, and the most important thing, I came to the conclusion that the Iranians didn't expect that something will happen this morning. They didn't expect this. And this is the first thing. And the second thing is that we once again see complete absence of the Iranian air defense forces. So we don't see interceptors, we don't see air defense forces, we don't see missiles, we don't see anything. We have just lots of explosions through the entire capital of Iran. According to information we have, the Israelis were trying to attack the places and the residentials where the leader of Iran lives. So for example, this is the picture or the first satellite images of Ali Khamenei's compound have emerged, showing the scale of the building destruction. The compound is usually used as his official residence. So as of the end of the 28th of February, we received several statements made by the Israeli media that the leader of Iran was assassinated by these attacks. The Iranians reject this information. They say that everything is okay with him, and according to the pro-Iranian sources, this evening the leader of Iran will make a statement about the situation. So what we have else during the previous 24 hours, we've seen the biggest number of missiles, of Tomahawk missiles, that were flying in the direction of Iran. Lots of missiles. I haven't seen anything like this, neither during the special military operation between Ukraine and the Russian Federation, nor before. So obviously that was something like an attempt to make a complete destruction of military objects of air defense force of Iran with one big attack. As of the end of the 28th of February, we don't know for sure whether the objectives of this attack were, let's say, were completed, but one thing we know for sure, that lots of missiles were used. So this is another video published from another angle. Once again, dozens of missiles. Also, the missiles were launched and were entering the territory of Iran from the north. So this is another video where we can see dozens of missiles, maybe hundreds of missiles. And of course we received lots of videos along the border between Iran, Syria and Iraq. We have lots of videos of explosions. So some objects of military infrastructure were attacked by Israeli forces, and most likely lots of objects of military infrastructure were completely destroyed. And everything stopped when the first videos with first missiles above the capital of Iran occurred. So everything stopped because, according to information we have, the Iranian authorities turned off or shut down the internet, and we stopped receiving videos from Iran. Most likely these strikes continued, carried by the United States of America and by Israel, but we don't have anything because no internet means no videos. Maybe there are lots of Starlink terminals through the entire territory of Iran that were brought by probably Israeli and US special forces before this operation, and most likely we will start receiving videos in coming hours. But as of now, we have lots of videos, but mainly from the states of the Middle East. So we're talking about Saudi Arabia, we're talking about Qatar, we're talking about Bahrain, we're talking about United Arab Emirates, and of course we're talking about Kuwait and Jordan. So the the Israelis and Americans ended their first stage of their operation. By the way, the President of the United States of America was planning to make a statement on the matter of this operation, but it seems that something went wrong, and for some reason he decided to change his mind and he cancelled his statement, and most likely he cancelled the statement because the Iranians struck back. And according to information we have, first of all, the Iranians decided to attack the American bases that are located very close to the Iran itself. Yes, there were several missiles that were launched in the direction of Israel, but we're talking about a very minimal quantity of these missiles. So very minimal quantity of missiles, and most of them were intercepted by the Israeli air defense forces. We have lots of videos of how missiles haven't managed to even get to the border. But the Iranians decided first to attack military bases of the United States of America that are located very close, and due to this situation the Iranians began bombing and attacking the states of Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and so on. And because the logic is very simple, the distance between Iran itself and, let's say, the state of Bahrain is just around 250 kilometers, which is nothing for the ballistic missiles, which is nothing for drones. And we received lots of videos from this area, and you know that when we start receiving videos from Bahrain, from United Arab Emirates, I noted that the US military forces most likely, and maybe the local forces, are completely unprofessional. Maybe not the US force, but the Bahrainian forces or the Qatari forces and so on, because we start receiving updates of videos of something that we haven't seen during the special military operation between Russia and Ukraine since the beginning of the operation. And I'm talking first of all about positions of the air defense forces. Lots of videos during the day were published about Patriot systems, THAAD systems that were installed by the United States of America in this region, and the civilians and locals were making lots of videos and were publishing them in the internet. And of course the Iranians were using this information to detect these positions and to attack them. For example, this video was published from Bahrain. Obviously, you don't need to be a big specialist to understand where the launcher is located. Or, for example, another video was published from the area of Kuwait. Here we can see the same story. Here we can see a Patriot system that was bringing down the Iranian missiles. And obviously, it wasn't a big deal or problem to discover the position of this air defense system. And we received lots of videos of this type. So the Iranians were attacking mainly the military bases, and for example we received lots of videos from the Navy base in the area in the central part of the Abu Dhabi, the capital of Bahrain. So here we can see the moments of strikes. Here we can see when the ballistic missiles of the Iranians attack these military bases. You can see lots of explosions, very heavy explosions. Then we can see smoke rising above over the city and so on. Here we can see the consequences of attack, and as you can see, as we understand, something big was destroyed with the Iranian ballistic missiles. And some sources are saying that because of this picture, because of all these pictures, the President of the United States of America cancelled his speech that was planned this evening. Another important video, for example, here we can see from another angle, but another important video was published from the area of Qatar. There were also lots of explosions, and for example in this video we can see that several military bases and airfields were damaged and destroyed. And there was a video when a very big radar was destroyed. Maybe it is this radar was destroyed in Dubai, maybe in Kuwait, but a very big radar was destroyed that the United States of America was using to let's say to check the missiles and to understand that somebody is going to attack or something like this. So one thing is clear, that during the previous 24 hours lots of very expensive objects of military infrastructure were destroyed in the Middle East by the Iranian ballistic strikes. So we believe that during the upcoming night between the 28th of February and the 1st of March of 2026, we'll see more waves of attack from the US and Israeli sides. Currently, the aircrafts F-16s, F-35s are reloading. The coalition is regrouping, and this upcoming night we'll see lots of attacks, and we're going to see lots of explosions and lots of damage dealt to the objects of critical infrastructure and military infrastructure of Iran, and most likely right after this attack the Iranians will strike back once again. So the situation is critical, obviously, and as we understand, and according to these distractions, according to updates we receive, that this conflict will be a very long one, and most likely this conflict won't end within the next 12 or 14 days. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. And first, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. The Russians, when the conflict in the Middle East started, the Russians intensified their activities through the entire Zaporozhye direction, because the Russians currently understand that most likely all missiles for Patriot systems will be transferred to the Middle East, which means that the Ukrainians most likely won't get anything. So that is why the Russians understand that it is time to begin their major offensive operation, because obviously the window of opportunities is not so big for Russians, and they will try to use this opportunity. So the Russians, as you can see, pro-Russian sources published lots of videos from the Zaporozhye direction. We can see very huge activities in the Kamyshevacha direction. We can see how Russians were attacking with FPV drones the armored vehicles and the different vehicles of the armored forces of Ukraine that were moving in this area. It seems that the Russians are preparing themselves before the beginning of another major offensive operation with the purpose to break through Ukraine's defense and to answer or to approach the city of Kamyshevacha with the purpose to establish complete control over the NO8 and a NO8 road that goes from the city of Zaporozhye towards the city of Orekhov. As for the city of Orekhov, we received a very important video from the central part, and here we can see how Russians once again attacked the central bridge in this area, and as a result of this attack, most likely the bridge was significantly damaged. The Russians are trying to cut the southern part of the city, or the city of Orekhov itself, from the settlement of Preobrazhenka, and most likely, if Russians destroy the bridge, they may try to begin offensive operation in the area of the city itself as well, through the settlement of Novoandreevka and through the settlement of Novodanilovka. So we might see very heavy clashes in this area in coming days. And of course, the most important updates are coming from the eastern Zaporozhye direction, where the map, as you can see, has been adjusted significantly. This is the situation by the end of, for example, 22nd of February of 2026, and it seems that this is the date when the Russian offensive operation in this area started. The Russians were bombing and attacking the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa with heavy flamethrower systems. Here we can see the video, and then the map began changing. So this is the situation by the end of the 24th of February, when we received the report that Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the area of Rizdvyanka. This information was provided by the Ministry of Defense. Later we received the report that Russians, during the same day, the Russians improved their positions to the south of the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa and Hirke. By the end of the 25th of February, we received the report that the defenses of the armored forces of Ukraine in the pocket to the south of the Neskuchne collapsed, and the Ukrainians began retreating from this area in the northwestern direction towards the village of Gulyai-Polska, and the Russians were attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area with aviation and with artillery. The next day, we received the report that Russians finished the first stage of attack, the first phase, and they were regrouping. And for example, by the end of the 28th of February, we received several reports that the Russians managed to improve their position significantly to the south of the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. The Minister of Defense, the Group of Forces East, the Group of Forces East, the Minister of Defense reported that Russians established complete control over the settlement by the name of Gorkaya, which is located to the south of the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. Based on these reports and based on the video that was published by pro-Russian sources, we have adjusted the map. Now we see that the Russians are taking these two villages, these two settlements in pincers. We're talking about Verkhnya Persa and Vostvizhovka, and most likely the Russians will continue improving their positions in this area with the purpose to tighten the news around the main logistic lines that go from the from the west in the eastern direction. So the distance, currently the distance between the southern and the northern pincer is around 10-15 kilometers. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation in the direction of the settlement of Gulai-Polska. As you can see, during the previous 24 hours, additional changes were recorded as well. So obviously, this is the beginning of the major offensive operation towards the city by the name of Orekhov. With the current pace of offensive, most likely the Russians will be able to approach the settlement of Orekhov somewhere around probably late April or something like this. So during the April, the battle for Orekhov most likely will begin. At the same time, the Ukrainians are trying to send additional forces in the south, to the south from the settlements of Pokrovska, Velika Mikhailovka, with the purpose to continue the Ukrainian major counter-offensive operation in the north and Zaporozhye direction. But the Russians, as we understand, managed to discover these Ukrainian tactics, and they brought additional, let's say, units of FPV drone operators and just drone operators. And during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos of how Russians were attacking vehicles, positions of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area with drones, with missiles, with artillery, and so on. So as you can see, lots of icons, and most of them are just about one thing: how the Ukrainians were trying to bring additional forces to the line of combat contact. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Konstantinovka. During the previous 24 hours, as you can see, the map has been adjusted. So the Russians improved their positions in the eastern part of the city. As of the central part, no changes. Despite the fact that the Russians ruined the logistic of the city of Konstantinovka significantly, we see that the Russians still haven't managed to break through the southern defense line of the armored forces of Ukraine. So yes, of course, they managed to bridge this line at several places, but this is not a critical situation. So in coming days, we believe that the Russians will launch the next wave of attack with the purpose to break through Ukraine's defense completely and to dig in deeper inside of the city. As for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything special, just a very huge FPV drone activity without changes. As for the Leman direction, during the previous 24 hours, pro-Russian sources adjusted the map in the area of the settlement of Drobyshevo. Most likely, pro-Russian sources adjusted the map in this area based on this video published by pro-Russian sources. Here we can see the Russian flag that was raised in the central part of the settlement. As of now, very difficult to say whether the flag was established by a drone or by a soldier, so that is why we decided to keep the map as is. Now let's talk about the northern directions. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians, according to information we have, managed to improve their position significantly. It seems that the Russians are going to use the Kharkiv offensive operation as a primary offensive operation for 2026. It seems that the Russians are tasked to reduce the pressure that the civilians in the area of the city of Belgrade suffer from Ukrainian attacks with missiles and drones. So that is why the Russians are intensifying their offensive with the purpose to get the city of Kharkiv itself as close as possible and to establish complete control over the city with drones. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation and the group of forces north stated that the settlement of Neskuchne was captured by Russians, and we see that the Russians managed to approach the settlement of Veselov from the northeast. So as you can see, there is a dense network of the fortifications and layered defense and, let's say, defense layer, and it seems that Russians are tasked to take this territory under complete control, and if Russians are able to do this, then the Russians will enter the Kharkiv operational space and they will be able to get a bit more closer, and for example from these positions the Russians will be able to establish complete control even over the central part of the city of Kharkiv with FPV drones, which most likely will reduce the Ukraine's capabilities to use missiles and drones to attack energy infrastructure of Belgrade. So the Russians right now are tasked just for one thing: to reduce the pressure on the city of Belgrade. Now let's move further. As for the Sumi direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded in the area of the second defense layer. This information was provided by pro-Russian sources. As we can see, the Russians are still fighting for the second defense layer, most likely without the ability to answer the layer itself. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.